She told me she knew everything would collapse, but that it was necessary to happen. What can you make of that? The chain of Nadia's gaze upon me that morning, that can't be broken. In fact, I feel it once again clutching me, both brutally and motherly. As I walk now around the island again, I presented to her the island that night. Now I'm revisiting that moment. Is it weird to make a documentary of someone's past? During that walk, Nadia was unusually calm, boiling inside, far from my scrutiny. She told me she knew everything would collapse, but that it was necessary to happen. What can you make of that? Perhaps it's a woman's asset to talk in riddles, on a low, wise voice, to build up the mystery around them, and even when that mystery is slightly counterfeit, to the extent that I, the man, would rather run away, it's still charming and melting that that particular woman chose you to bestow her berserk intuition upon your life's simple and logical deeds. Nadia truly was a shaman of her role as the intuitive woman. Her life was full of misery, and that misery kept her warm. That's what I told myself after meeting her by the gorge that morning. A slim young woman with a lace top and a skirt made out of what I then found out to be dreadlocks from a Rastafarian ex-boyfriend of hers. She scalped him after a one-night stand, and seemed that unspeakable skirt, the dried, blooded scalp around her womb, because all he thought of was her. Nadia had all sorts of one-night stands, I learned from her. Apparently, no man wanted her for more than one night, which is both awkward and understandable. Awkward if you consider she was a fine woman. Understandable if you consider her rash temper. Moreover, she was fond of superstitions like no other. Zodiacs, tarot, ancient mythologies, and symbolism. Everything is related and means something, she used to say. The symbol of her miserable life? A lion. More accurately, a lion's roar. And oddly enough, that was part of her job description. She hunted lions' roars for a living. I guess she still does, but it comes easier to talk about her in the past. As you heard, she didn't hunt lions, because that would be atrocious. Poor animals, she said. But their very roars. According to Nadia, the roars reminded you of your inner self that you lock deep inside, and listening to them enables you to release the psychological pressure. Fear is the routine we choked our mental systems with, she used to say. That night, during our walk, she said she liked Helgoland. She claimed she could hear a lion roar by the gorge. There's no zoo in Helgoland, and, needless to say, no lions. And when I've told her that, a swift, angry shiver crossed her body. We are not that different, you and I, darling. I deal with lion roars, you with human roars. Truth be told, and I was soon to vividly realize it, this was sort of anarchy with a guideline. But isn't heaven that as well? Anarchy and rehab for imagination and egos. Mass protests cloaked the streets of main European capitals. Museum managers and art dealers were accused of corrupting people's minds in order to get their way with dirty capitalistic methods. Art is just manipulation, the crowds were screaming. Quijana is just another god and another religion they invent to take our money. I am Quijana, certain artists said, each on his own behalf. Even Nadia told me once that Quijana is her father, and he's proud I risked summoning him. The lion's roars must have driven her insane. Mr. Kadic destroyed art and turned into money and crime, the crowd say. I for one never thought these could happen. It was heaven gone bad. The outcome of freedom, right, Miss Reportress? I've been rowing around this island for hours now, and strangely, I haven't bumped into anyone. How come? No sailors, no fishermen? This island is all abandoned. The only mark I see here and there is the scribbling, walls, and labels on rocks and walls. This isn't an interview or a documentary. This is an interrogatory, and my only testimony, my only ally is my creation, Quijana, my only perfect hideout. Museums are sanitariums for artworks, Quijana said. People dress in their best and go there to visit the sick artworks. They pay them a visit as if they were patients. That was one of the most famous Quijana quotes roaming about, and it went on. Museums are not represented by artworks. They are comprised of two other fundamental things, walls and labels. That's all. When we childishly think of a museum, we picture a building with white walls and with labels on them. I too could have been in that depot with the victims. Maybe it's all a matter of timing. Nadia came into my life and prevented me from boarding that plane to Berlin. If I had walked out on her then to get on my plane, I would have died in the fire. Perhaps the relationship rules of contemporary society, the hit-and-run principle, don't always pull one out as the winner. And that night too, she was the first to leave, and me chasing her throughout the airport hub like a madman. I'm not sure if this really is an interrogatory, but I have the impression that even when I speak inside my head, you can hear me. My voice is only the shadow of my words, the yellow jelly trickle from a snail. You, Miss Reportress, or whoever you are, timing wasn't on the side of those youngsters dying in the fire. For some reason, although there followed all sorts of horrifying terrorist distortions of Quijana sayings, that fire is the one haunting me, because it was completely out of control. If the leech poet were to change me into a word, what would it be? Guilt or control? I'll lay in this chamber's bed and I'll wait asleep, without faking it this time. For her to come to gaze upon me, to ask me for another testimony.